Hello everyone, today is 6th of December. Now it's 20 past 9 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment. And I will start with this report on RT that Lavrov, foreign minister of Russian Federation, slams fantasies about Western troops in Ukraine. There are ongoing speculation about the potential deployment of troops to Ukraine by Western nations are fantasies that only make the situation worse, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said. The top diplomat delivered the remarks on Thursday during a press conference of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, ministerial meeting in Malta. And then, quote, I believe that all these fantasies only make the situation worse and show that the people who are running around with such ideas stubbornly prefer not to hear the very clear warnings that Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly made public. Lavrov stated the remarks came aimed a strong string of media reports that suggested France and UK have been considering deploying their troops to Ukraine. The force is reportedly supposed to act as peacekeepers to observe a ceasefire in event of Moscow and Kiev engaged in talks. The topic has been also invoked by German leadership, yet Chancellor Olaf Scholz has said the deployment of the country's troops to Ukraine was out of question before a real ceasefire was achieved. Lavrov also reiterated that Moscow welcomes any constructive initiatives to bring the Ukrainian conflict to an end. However, Russia does not believe any Western-based organizations will be of any help and is seeking to strengthen security for everyone in our whole continent of Eurasia, he said. So, by the way, this is once again clear demonstration of Russian position on topic of Western troops, NATO troops into this former republic, Ukraine, and there is not really much to add to it. I just remind you my take on the big picture that I believe once this conflict will end, Russia will be in direct or indirect control of majority of territory of this republic, and eventually NATO will gain control over the western parts of Ukraine that used to be territories of Poland before Second World War, Hungary before First World War, and Romania before Second World War. That's what is going to happened. Only question I have personally is that will Kiev and surrounding couple of regions maintain statehood on a political map on the name of Ukraine or not? That's only question I have personally, because rest of it is quite clear. And of course there will be no Western troops outside of Western Ukraine. There will be no NATO troops outside of Western Ukraine. It's just not possible, right? But Sergei Lavrov making more headlines these days because Argumentative Fact is reporting that after Malta, Lavrov traveled to Qatar to meet his counterpart and also to participate in Astana format meeting that will take place in Qatar to discuss the situation in Syria. Astana format was created exactly to help Syria get out of this crisis, and obviously situation in Middle East will be main topic of discussions. And also, by the way, when it comes to Lavrov, Tucker Carlson published an interview with him yesterday late evening. I watched most of it. I guess many members of our community also. And dear friend, if you have not, and if you're interested to see this interview, I published on my Telegram channel this interview, and You can watch it, of course. I published a link to it. And so interesting interview, interesting conversation. Lavrov and Carson spoke about many topics: nuclear risks, Ukraine, Syria, this struggle between Western ruling class and Russia, Western ruling class and the global South. Many topics were touched. Very informative interview, especially for maybe not so much for our community, because I believe we are quite well informed, right, about major developments. But interview definitely going to be very informative for majority of the Western society, especially in US. Majority that is under heavy influence of propaganda of the Western MSM and the Western ruling class. So well done to Tucker Carlson for doing whatever he can, basically, to inform Western public about real situation that is taking place in this world, and well done to him for all his attempts to somehow play positive role in terms of de-escalating the tensions between collective West and Russia. Truly noble stuff to do, by the way. So good on him. Also, dear friends, we have this report from RT that NATO is discussing ceasefire move for Ukraine. Initially, this was reported on Bloomberg. So Ukraine's Western backers are shifting from attempting to push for military victory against Russia towards trying to help Kyiv achieve their best position to negotiate a ceasefire. Bloomberg reported on Wednesday, citing people familiar with the matter. The report came as Russian forces advance in Donbass at the rate unseen since 2022, while recapturing more and more ground from Ukrainian forces, invading forces, and rather in Russia's Kursk region, which is also true, of course. And nowadays, many Western media outlets are definitely changing the tune. If before they were pushing this narrative that, I mean, little more weapons, little more money, and West will be in a position to achieve a strategical defeat of Russia, nowadays they are more, they changed their song, and they are now pushing this new narrative that, NATO is trying to, boost Kyiv regime's positions as much as possible, so that Kyiv will be in a better position for negotiations with Russia. All of it is a total BS and nonsense, obviously. In no circumstances, Western ruling class will be able to turn the tide. So therefore, in no circumstances, they can strengthen Kyiv's position to negotiate. And after all, Moscow, we all understand that real negotiations will take place not between Moscow and Kyiv. Real negotiations will take place between Moscow and Washington, between Moscow and London, potentially Brussels, Berlin, Paris. They will be somewhat involved, but main capitals among NATO member states are, of course, Washington and London. And they will talk, right, to a Russian side. Their position is interesting because no one really cares what Zelensky or his criminal associates have to say, man. Who are they? Just nobodies, right? Clowns that were put, criminal, bloody clowns that were put in position of power by Western ruling class, just for the time being, to act. And they are acting, right? So, a report itself says it all. Russia is gaining control, liberating more and more territories all along the front line. It's not just Donbass, by the way, but all along the front line, significant progress is taking place, and we all understand that it's only a matter of time, and Kyiv regime's armed forces that are right now collapsing in Donbass, for example, in southern Donetsk sector of the front line, in Kurachovo, Pokrovsk direction, this Kyiv regime's armed forces eventually will collapse all along the front line, and Russian troops will then change this current strategy of mobile or active defense on a large-scale offensive operations to liberate really large territories and the people, right, from this terrorist regime that is, created by the West in a Kiev, right? And therefore, I don't see even slight chance that Western ruling class will be able to strengthen Kiev regime's position or their own position for negotiations. It's just not happening. And when it comes to Kursk salient, probably you notice that quite often Western media and Western politicians pushing narrative that, you know what, Kiev regime has its presence in the Kursk region, and therefore they can exchange this territory on some other territory, which is also nonsense, right? First of all, let's be clear though, Kiev regime, if you take a look at the map, by the way, you're not gonna even notice, if you didn't zoom in really big time, you're not gonna notice that part of Kursk salient borderline region that is temporarily occupied by Kiev regime's forces and NATO mercenaries. It's just a Suja district, basically, right? One district on the borderline area. So obviously, this cannot be used and will not be seen by Russia as some sort of strength on part of collective West or Kiev regime, because it's a matter of time and Russian troops will liberate entire this salient. There's no questions about that. That's it, but that's what we are talking. If you zoom out a little bit, you're not gonna notice it, right? You have to zoom in to see this area, and for whatever reason, I don't know, Western MSM and Western public figures, some of them at least, are thinking that this one district, occupation of this one district in the borderline area, can force Moscow to withdraw from liberated territories. I mean, this is total nonsense, right? Total nonsense. But that's the narrative that they are also pushing. But in any case, at this point, it don't really matters what collective West thinks or Western ruling class thinks. Definitely don't matters what Kiev regime thinks. What really matters is Russian position, right? And Western ruling class should listen to Russian position now. There is not really any reason for the collective West to continue this prolongation of this conflict. They lost. They should have enough courage to admit that they lost, and they should start really de-escalating. Otherwise, world may end up in a situation when some uncontrolled processes will take place, and then it's going to be, end of everything and for everybody, right? And I don't think anyone in this world wants to see that kind of escalation, right? Meanwhile, TASS news agency is reporting that, according to yet again Western MSM, Kiev regime is about to make public announcement that they are open for negotiations. Head of Zelensky's office went to US, according to report, to gain support of Trump and his inner circle. He failed in this big time. And again, according to some reports that I see, but anyways, Wall Street Journal is reporting that in fairly short time, Kiev regime will make it public that they are ready for negotiations. Let's translate a little bit of this news for a little more details. So Ukraine plans to declare its readiness to negotiate and conclude an agreement with Russia. This was reported by the Wall Street Journal, citing sources. According to publication, Kiev is ready to declare its readiness for peace, but it must be sustainable one. The source said. According to sources, the head of Vladimir Zelensky's office, Andrei Yermak, visited Washington to improve relations with the team of US President-elect Donald Trump. The publication also notes that the meeting with Ukrainian official was attended by the US Vice President-elect James David Vance, future Trump's national security aide Mike Wells and Kat Kellogg, whom the US leader-elect wants to appoint as a special envoy for Ukraine. And dear friends, I saw some reports that, well, this person, Yermak, failed quite a big time to impress inner circle of the Trump. Probably he was treated quite coldly, understandably so, by the way, because I mean, for J.D. Vance, this person is, I mean, I guess he sees Yermak and Zelensky and all of them, by the way, all that bunch of criminals and mass murderers and terrorists that Western ruling class put in power in Kiev. Probably J.D. Vance sees all of them as corrupt, unworthy, disgusting individuals. Because that's what they are, really, right? So I'm not at all surprised that there are reports that Yermak failed big time in US to gain support of Trump's administration, future administration. Anyways, let's continue. We will find out soon, isn't it? Anyways, RIA Novosti meanwhile is reporting that well, UK, by the way, UK's authorities conducted emergency meeting with the authorities on Cyprus and Gibraltar on topic of security of British military assets in these territories. Quite interesting news, isn't it? If you remember, a couple of days ago, I reported about Russian naval and exercises of Russian Air Force in the Mediterranean when some number of missiles were test fired, including hypersonic Kinzhal and hypersonic Zircon missiles that easily can take out, for example, if order is given, British military base in Cyprus. And I said that to me personally it does looks quite logical, and that Moscow will consider that base on Cyprus as a legit target for retaliation after UK launched its Storm Shadow missiles to strike deep inside the Russian territory. And I guess London is also seeing that they risk big time, and Moscow now might retaliate, maybe because not of that first launch of Storm Shadows, but maybe after second strike with this long-range British missiles will take place. So therefore, a senior representative of the British Ministry of Defense had emergency talks with the officials from Cyprus and Gibraltar about the alleged Russian threat to British bases in these territories. The Telegraph, British media outlet, reports citing informed sources. There have been some very important meetings regarding the review of the threat level for British bases in Cyprus and Gibraltar, said a source familiar with the discussions. So, well, I guess my reading of the big picture was correct again, right? Because, yes, I mean, it was quite too obvious, really, to me at least, that one of their potential targets for Russian retaliatory strike will be, or would be, that base, that British military base on Cyprus. It does make sense, right, to obliterate that base. All Moscow have to do, just out of kindness, is issue some 15 or 30 minutes warning so that personnel will have enough time to flee the area, but that time is not enough to evacuate military equipment. And after that 15 or 30 minutes, entire military base is going to oblivion, right? That will be a strong enough retaliatory step from Russian side for a British this terrorist attack on Russia with Storm Shadow missiles. And I say British attack on Russia because that's what it was, right? It's British military personnel, British intelligence services that organized that launch, right? Same goes for US military personnel when ATACMS missiles, US-made ATACMS missiles were launched to strike deep into Russian territory. For now, dear friends, as you know, there was a 3 occasions when US and UK launched their long-range weapons to strike deep into Russian territory, twice in the Kursk region, once in the Bryansk region. Latest attack took place on 25th of November, I believe, when a military airfield was targeted in Kursk region by ATACMS missiles, or with ATACMS missiles, and Russia did not yet retaliate on military assets of the US and UK. Although Russian leadership was very clear that if such attacks will take place, then Russia will consider assets of these hostile states as a legit target. So therefore, I see logic behind this news, why UK's authorities are worrying that Russia may take out some of their military assets as a retaliatory step if they will continue with their attacks on Russia. Let's hope after Oreshnik strike, after meeting between Russian head of Russian General Staff Gerasimov and his US counterpart on 27th of November, about which I reported yesterday. Let's hope after that there will be no more NATO long-range strikes on the Russian territory, and Moscow don't have to take a retaliatory strike and obliterate basically NATO military bases, US, UK, potentially French military bases or military assets. But you never know. With Western ruling class, you just never know. Maybe right now, this moment, they are authorizing launch of a large-scale, a long-range strike into Russian territory. And if that happens, then Moscow will don't really have a choice but to retaliate, and retaliate a big time, right? Because Western ruling class only understands language of force. So anyways, dear friends, let's continue. Andrea Novosti is reporting that during the night time, early hours of this morning, Russian air defense systems on duty intercepted 33 drones that were launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO member states to strike deep into Russian territory. No reports about casualties on the ground or more or less significant damage, at least for this moment. If any updates on that, of course, I will share additional information on my Telegram channel, Twitter X channel, and next updates. TASS News Agency is also reporting that a military expert from DPR, Vladimir Rogov, stated that Kyiv regime's formations are demining their own minefields in Zaporozhye region. He was quite specific. He was talking about Orekhov area, but and he is predicting that potentially Kyiv regime is planning some local scale or maybe sectoral scale counteroffensive in Zaporozhye region, which may be true actually. There are a number of sources that are predicting that Kyiv regime may launch before Trump will get to office. Kyiv regime may launch yet another sectoral scale offensive or counteroffensive operations, and one of the directions might be Zaporozhye region, Energodar city, and Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, for example. Although theoretically speaking, Kyiv regime for further escalation may use any other direction. They may launch whatever reserves they have still. They might launch those reserves towards Bryansk region of the Russian Federation, for example, or they might order the reserves to enter Belarus. And I remind you, dear friends, that authorities in Belarus some time ago stated that NATO already prepared a plan to invade Belarus in 4 regions of the Belarus that are bordering Ukraine. So we might see escalation towards Belarus also. Time will tell. But it is important, interesting news that Kyiv regime is conducting some demining process in Zaporozhye region. This clearly can be seen as an indicator that Kyiv regime has some plans in regards to this direction. Although same time one may argue that this is just attempt to divert attention of the Russian side from some other areas. That also may be true. In any case, of course, Russian military intelligence, Russian security services will pay attention to all the developments to make sure that Russian side is ready for all possible provocations that Kiev regime may come up with. Also, dear friends, TASS news agency is reporting that today, President of Russian Federation and President of Belarus, Putin and Lukashenko, will sign a treaty about security guarantees in framework of United State. Russia and Belarus, by the way, as you know, have a United State. It's like a initial phase of a confederation that was built. So Russian President Vladimir Putin has accepted the proposal of the Russian Foreign Ministry to sign a treaty between Russia and Belarus on security guarantees within the Union State, and this agreement most likely will be signed today. I believe Russian President will visit today Belarus. Also, dear friends, RT is reporting that Armenian Prime Minister is seeking withdrawal from a military alliance, and this time we are talking about CSTO, military alliance that was created by a number of former Soviet republics, including Armenia and Russia. So Armenia will not participate in the affairs of their collective security treaty organization and essentially considers itself out of their alliance. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has said the CSTO, established in 1992 following a breakup of the USSR, comprises several former Soviet republics, with Armenia as one of its founding members. Under Pashinyan's leadership, Armenia has distanced itself from their CSTO, having frozen its participation earlier this year. And well, not a surprise for our community, isn't it, dear friends? Armenia formally still a member of CSTO, but I guess it's only a matter of time, and all the official steps will be taken by Yerevan to end its affiliation with their CSTO. I predicted this, right? I predicted that this would happen. I predicted because currently Armenia is run by assets of the West, right? Assets of the United States mainly, although obviously France is actively involved there also, because the US and France, these are two countries from the West that there is a large Armenian diaspora, and of course secret services of France and US actively working with this Armenian diaspora to to infiltrate Armenia as much as possible, basically, and to establish strong grip, and that's what they did actually. They put in power Pashinyan, someone that was funded for quite a long time, whose activity was funded by Soros Fund. And when you hear Soros, I mean, you know the story, right? So anyways, because Pashinyan and his government, I mean, his inner circle, they are Western assets, it was only a matter of time, in my reading of the big picture, and Yerevan will start distancing itself from Russia, from all the organizations that are built together by these former Soviet republics, including CSTO, and I predicted that it's only a matter of time that when Armenia not just will completely sour its relationships with the CSTO and their other organizations, including Eurasian Economical Union, by the way, but it's only a matter of time when Pashinyan's government will demand from Russia to withdraw its forces, its troops from Armenia. And if it was up to me, by the way, I will not let Pashinyan to speculate on this matter. I will say right now, you know what, you clearly chose your trajectory. You want to be hostile to Russia. You chose to destroy relationships with Russia. You prefer to be a strategical partner or whatever with the NATO, right? NATO member states. Okay, it's your choice. We respect your choice. Okay, but I think in that case there is no place for our troops on your territory. and we are withdrawing our border guards and our bases from Armenia. Take care of yourself. That's what I would do, by the way, because it's only a matter of time. Mark my word, dear friends, and maybe you will remember when it will happen, that it's only a matter of time, and Yerevan will demand the withdrawal of the Russian force. And I'm quite sure I'm 100% correct on that prediction, as I was correct when I said that it's only a matter of time when Armenia will sour relationships with CSTO and distance itself from this organization. That's already had happened, and we have statements from Pashinyan that, you know, they no longer see themselves as a part of this organization. As I said, some formalities are left, and give it time. Armenia will finally cut all their ties with CSTO, all the affiliations. And dear friends, before I continue, let me notice, if I may, that this media project is completely subscriber funded. It's completely independent. I don't have advertised. My channel is not monetized on YouTube. It's me and you, dear community. We are running this show, and if you like what you see, if you like my channels, if you want to see this project surviving in this field of news and political commentary, which is quite a competitive field to be in, isn't it? And if you want to see further, maybe even further development of this project, please consider to support my work and this project with small donations through PayPal platform or Boosty, or by subscribing to my page on Patreon and the Boosty. This is my page on Boosty, by the way. Plenty of extra content that is available for the community here. My Patreon page is much more developed because I started working on Patreon for quite a while ago, and there, I mean, every other day, quite often I have some extra content, bonus content on Patreon and Boosty, news updates, and there are some other stuff. So I'm trying to maintain these pages relevant and informative. All the links on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment, including crypto wallet, in case you are good with the crypto. And that being said, let's continue with some more news. And the RT is reporting that the Syrian army announces exit from a key city. Unfortunately, the Syrian army has announced its withdrawal from the central city of Hama after fierce fighting with their Islamist militants. In a statement issued on Facebook, the general command of the army and armed forces said that over the past few days, their nation's troops have fought fierce battles to repel and thwart their violent and successive attacks launched by the jihadists. However, their intensification of the fight and the rising death toll have prompted the army to redeploy and reposition its units. The statement read, now Syrian Arab army will try to hold on to Homs city, although it is a big question how successful they would be in defending their homes. All of us have questions, by the way, of course, about what is happening with the Syrian army. There are many explanations, many attempts on internet to explain the situation. There are experts, by the way, in this field. So there are many explanations, but in any case, it is unfortunate that these terrorist groups, Israeli, US, UK, and Turkish-backed terrorist groups, managing to basically destroy Syria. That's what is happening. Probably we are seeing a beginning of the end of Syria as we knew it, and to be honest, I I have some doubts that Syrian Arab army will be able to hold on to Homs city. Most likely they will not. And once Homs is under control of terrorists, they might turn their attention towards Tartus and Latakia. These areas are where Shiites are living, Alawites. And also this is the area on the Mediterranean shore where Russian military bases, main military bases are located. So I guess it is a probability now. It is definitely probability that in a relatively short time, maybe Moscow will have no option but to evacuate all Russian military staff and all Russian bases from Syria, because if Syrian Arab army is unable for whatever reason, due to corruption or due to whatever, low morale or whatever it is, if Syrian Arab army is unable to fight and defend its country, then I doubt that other countries will risk lives of their troops to do the job that Syrian Arab army should be able to do. So very difficult situation. As I said, maybe we are observing beginning of the end of Syria as we know it, and if that's the case, then Syria probably will be divided in several parts. There is a theoretical chance that Alawites will manage to protect these provinces around Tartus and Latakia. Maybe they will give a fight to terrorists in these areas. Kurdish forces most likely will keep their territories on the northern eastern parts of Syria, at least before Turkish armed forces will get engaged directly in this military operation to crush Kurdish formations. And the rest of the Syria probably will end up under control of this, that again, Israeli, US, UK, and Turkish-backed terrorist groups. That's what is going to happen, maybe, or maybe Alawites would not be able to defend these provinces around Tartus and Latakia, and in that case, that area will also be captured by the terrorists. And as I said, in case of such a scenario, of course, Russia will have no option but to withdraw its military personnel, its military bases, and I guess Russian general staff is already working on the plans, just in case, on the plans of rapid withdrawal from Syria. Anyways, let's continue. And when it comes to map, by the way, this is Homs. This is Homs, city of some 700,000, from 700,000 to up to million people. This is Hama. This is Hama, by the way, also major city. Of course, Latakia, biggest city, Aleppo, biggest city of Syria, already being captured by the terrorists. And if and when Homs will fail under this offensive of terrorists, then I guess major direction of these terrorists will be Damascus and this Latakia and Tartus areas. And this is Damascus, by the way, here on the southern part of Syria. I don't know. Maybe Iran will send its ground forces in upcoming days to stabilize situation. But if not, then I don't see how this terrorist offensive can be stopped by Syrian Arab army, which is, as you can see, by the way, are unable to give stabilized situation. They just, for whatever reason, they just cannot do it. Russian Air Force, meanwhile, is actively working to neutralize this this terrorist offensive on Syria. And according to Russian Defense Ministry, At least 300 terrorists were neutralized as a result of Russian airstrikes, but obviously airstrikes not gonna be enough. Airstrikes are never enough, right? It's a ground forces that eventually have to do their job, and it seems like Syrian Arab Army is at least for now unable to stop this terrorist offensive. RT is reporting, meanwhile, that Kremlin is commenting on military assistance to Syria. The Russian government is analyzing the situation in Syria to determine the level of assistance Damascus needs to deal with an ongoing jihadist offensive. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said on Tuesday, and well, probably Moscow is considering secure ways to withdraw Russian troops, because I really don't think Moscow can send tens of thousands of troops now to Syria to do the job that Syrian Arab Army should be able to do, right? And therefore, I don't think Iran will send. There are some talks that Iran may deploy its ground forces, but I don't think so. I just don't think that's going to be the case, because yet again, Assad's regime basically failed. They had all the support they needed, militarily speaking, from Hezbollah, from Russia, from Iran, from Iraq, by the way, Iraqi militia formations, and they had their established control over they had liberated from the terrorists significant territories. There was Idlib province left, basically, but and again, because of the corruption, because of the low morale or whatever, for whatever reason, government of Assad clearly lost control over the situation. It's sad to see, by the way. I would not be surprised at all if Assad eventually will flee Syria for Iran or for Russia. I don't know. Or if Alawites will be able to hold on to these provinces around Tartus and Latakia, maybe Assad will flee to those areas to lead resistance there. I don't know, but at this point, it seems like we are observing beginning of the end of Syria as we knew it. And when it comes to Russian military assistance, by the way, I mean, Russia already did quite a lot, right? And I don't think Moscow should send tens of thousands of troops now to fight the fight of the Syrian Arab Army. I don't think that's the way to go. RT is reporting that well, British media meanwhile calls, probably you already know about this, that in the West there is a attempt to do some advertising work for these jihadist groups, these terrorist groups, and they've been called even diversity friendly now in the Western media, which is one may say it's a shocking that Western public figures, Western so-called media outlets lost any morale and principles, absolutely. But that's what it is, really. It's just true. Syrian jihadist forces that recently led their surprise assault on the city of Aleppo could be better than their current regime at governing people and protecting minorities. A piece published in a Telegraph has argued, British Telegraph, by the way. The column reports on their PR campaign by the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham HTC terrorist a group, Idlib-based terrorist group formerly known as Al-Qaeda, affiliated Jabhat al-Nusra, and its current leader Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. Last week, it conducted a military offensive against Syrian government forces and, together with allied militant groups, managed to overrun Aleppo, not just Aleppo, but dozens and dozens of cities and villages. Latest reports is, as I already said, that they managed to capture Hama. The author of the article, Aaron Zelin, is a research fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, a pro-Israeli think tank. He argued that despite their origins and authoritarian nature of their HTC, it could prove to be really ready to govern as well as fight. Jolani, who has a 10 million US bounty on his head, has made a number of remarks to make sure that no one harasses or harms the Christians or Kurd community in Idlib. Zelin said, yeah, of course, and therefore you're gonna trust these terrorist animals, right? These are not humans, by the way. These terrorists are animals and should be exterminated like rabid dogs. Let's be clear on that. In no circumstances these terrorist animals can be or should be treated as humans, because they are not humans. They are biological rubbish, right? And this Israeli think tank and this Zionist, by trying to update image of these terrorist animals, he is basically indirectly confirming Israeli support for these terrorists. That's what it does, and the same goes for article itself in the Telegraph, by the way. How despicable, disgusting people these are, man. If we even can call people them. RIA Novosti is reporting that, and by the way, you know what? I hope Moscow will cut all diplomatic ties with Israel and with US, UK, and Turkey, by the way. It is time to do it, clearly. It is time to do it, by the way. Just cut all diplomatic ties, all ties with these countries, by the way. Just do it for God's sake. Huh? And with France also. RIA Novosti is reporting that Macron accepted the resignation of the now former Prime Minister Barnier, although he also stated that he is not going to leave the office and he will stay until last day as a president of France. Okay. Interfax is reporting that Russia is shutting down general consulate of Poland in St. Petersburg as a retaliatory step for closure of the Russian consulate in Poland. I mean, similar stuff should be done in regards to, as I said, by the way, Israel, US, UK, France, Turkey. I don't think Russia needs any diplomatic ties with these extremely hostile states. And Poland goes in that batch also. Why should Russia keep diplomats in Poland and spend potentially millions of dollars by maintaining embassy, consulate, and so on? Just cut diplomatic ties, man. There is no need to talk to them really anymore, right? Because you cannot trust them anyways. So what is the point to have embassies there? Can Moscow trust Israeli leadership? No, in no circumstances. Can Moscow trust Turkish leadership? No. Can Moscow trust leadership of US? No. Leadership of France? No. Leadership of UK? No. Leadership of Poland? No. Then what is the reason to keep embassies there? What is the reason to play this nonsensical game of diplomatic relations? I mean, why? Why taxpayers' money have to be spent on this senseless, absolutely senseless political game? I don't know. Especially if you take in account that there is always, by the way, even with when diplomatic ties are cut, there is always backdoor means of communication left. Always, right? So one may argue that, you know what, there should be some lines of communication. Those lines of communication will be in place anyways, with or without formal diplomatic relations. So it will save money for Russia if Russia will cut diplomatic ties with these countries, and it will be a statement, of course, strong statement, same time. But just in case, there always will be some backdoor communication means, right, in a place. It's always the case. RIA Novosti is reporting that treaty about treaty between North Korea and Russia is in force now. The agreement on strategical partnership between Russia and the DPRK has entered into force and will be valid indefinitely. The foreign ministry said so. Both sides, by the way, ratified this deal. Both sides signed all the necessary paperwork, and therefore this agreement between Russia and North Korea is in force. Now, let's see what changes that will bring. I think North Korean economy in a relatively short time will start opening to Russian businesses, and they're just, in that case, just give it 3 to 5 years, by the way, and you will not be able to recognize North Korea. That's how rapid changes will take place there, and give it another 15 to 20 years, and you would not recognize North Korea, period. Interfax is reporting that OPEC plus countries made decision to keep quotas on oil production, not just for 2025, but to prolong those quotas for 2026 also, which is quite interesting, I guess. OPEC plus countries don't really have faith in world's economy, that world's economy will grow enough so that production of oil, demand on oil will increase significantly. That's a quite indicator or quite information to keep in mind. Meanwhile, TASS news agency is reporting that head of Russia's Rosneft energo giant Igor Sechin stated that attempts of the West to push Russia out of world energy market may provoke collapse of the world economy, and he has a point, by the way. If for example, just to imagine that somehow West managed to cut off Russia completely from their energy market, then well, there is no way world market will manage to compensate for losses of oil and gas and coal and all the stuff that Russia is exporting, right? And therefore, obviously, price is gonna reach skyrocket, and that will cause chain reaction, obviously, and eventually, maybe world economy will not collapse completely, but world economy will definitely experience some very significant issues. World economies are already in quite shallow waters, and I don't think additional stress is going to be helpful, obviously. TASS news agency is reporting that Sechin, very same person, head of Rosneft, also called to double Russian oil production to help economical growth of their developing countries. Coal is interesting to double oil production, but this is not going to happen because Russia is closely working with OPEC. That's why it's called OPEC plus. And as I already reported, OPEC plus countries made decision to keep quotas not just for 2025 but also for 2026. So no significant increase in oil production should be expected or anywhere among OPEC member states, OPEC plus member states, including Russia. And TASS news agency is also reporting that China imposed sanctions on 13 US companies from military industrial complex, and also 6 heads of these companies. And this is a retaliatory step for cooperation between these companies and Taiwan. They are providing Taipei with weapons. And finally, by the way, I'll give you this news that according to the last newspaper, Russian president made some changes in ways that in the ways that foreign customers are paying for Russian gas. So Russian President Vladimir Putin has updated the procedure for paying for gas, allowing us to take in account counterclaims when paying for gas by foreign buyers, for example, making payment through third parties. As RBK reports, Vladimir Putin signed a decree introducing changes to the procedure for payment for Russian gas. According to the new document, Russian gas exporters can take into account counterclaims in their obligations to pay for gas by foreign buyers. Thus, the payment obligation can be fully or partially terminated by offsetting such claims, including crediting funds to accounts through third parties. As far as I understand, Moscow basically is allowing partners of the Russian energo companies to pay through third parties for Russian gas, and these changes were made after Russia's Gazprom being sanctioned by the West and cut off from the SWIFT. This happened just like 2 weeks ago or something, right? And Gazprom was used by Gazprom itself. Gazprom Bank was used by Gazprom itself and its partners to pay for Russian gas, right? And now third parties can be engaged to fulfill obligations. Okay, any sanctions, by the way, that West can come up with will only, further incentivize Moscow to come up with some schemes that will allow Russia to be less and less dependent on Western institutions, right? Financial, banking, and so on. And process is just too obvious, right? And this is it for now, dear friends. Relatively long update, but I hope you will find it informative and useful. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. Lately, last several days, probably you notice YouTube is smashing my videos big time. But maybe with your help, with likes and comments, we'll manage to deal with the algorithm. And for very same reason, if you can please share information about my channels with your friends on YouTube, not YouTube, but on YouTube also, on internet, and in a real life. And finally, if you like my work, if you think I deserve to be in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support her. All the links on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. Once again, have a wonderful day and a great upcoming weekend. Take care.